Hello and welcome to Boomer Banter, where we have real talk about aging well. My name is Wendy Green and I am your host. And I wanted to share a little story with you. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine in her early 80s suddenly just up and went to Paris. She'd been invited by another friend who had rented an apartment there for a month. And within a week, she had found somebody to watch her dog. She packed, she got her ticket, and off she went. It was an amazing adventure. But for a lot of us, the idea of travel, it means something that we save for, that we look forward to. We do a lot of planning around it. Maybe even we got a bucket list for our retirement. But now, with rising prices and aging bodies, many people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s are kind of shelving their dreams. They're assuming it's too expensive, too complicated, or just not worth the trouble. But today's guest is here to challenge that idea completely. Adriane Berg is host of the podcast Ageless Traveler, and she has built her life around the idea that age should never be a barrier to exploration, and that budget travel isn't just about cutting corners. It's also about opening doors. In today's conversation, we will explore what budget travel, or luxury budget travel, as Adriane says, really looks like today, how it can improve your health and mindset, and why travel with a purpose, called voluntourism, might just change how you see the world and yourself. So who is Adriane Berg? Adriane is a veteran media personality, award-winning host, and passionate advocate for purposeful living through travel. She has hosted shows on CNN Financial, WABC, and WMCA, and she even won an Emmy for her work making tax law engaging. Yep, really. Adriane has appeared on Oprah, Good Morning America, and The Home Show. And as I mentioned, she now hosts the Ageless Traveler podcast. Beyond media, Adriane advises global tourism boards, represents the UN on aging issues, and inspires people around the world to embrace adventure, no matter their age or budget. She's smart, she's funny, and she believes that travel isn't just about where you go. It's about who you become along the way. So let's welcome Adriane Berg to Boomer Banter.
Well, we always say it's so wonderful to be here, but Wendy, it really is wonderful to be here. I'm so excited about this.
I am so excited. Adriane and I are friends through the podcast world, so I'm so glad to have you on the show today. So before we get started with all of this wonderful tips you have for us, tell me how you got the travel bug in the first place.
I got the travel bug when I was very, very young. Walt Disney, 1954. I was in Brooklyn and I was 6, and Disney World opened and I had no interest in it. I wanted to go to Borneo because Trader Sam was on the Jungle Cruise. And so every other kid wanted to see Mickey Mouse, I wanted to go to Borneo. Finally, about 50 years later, I got to Borneo. And when I was 11, I took a trip that took me to 3 or 4 different countries right after my dad had passed away. And I really was a depressed 11-year-old. And I've never been depressed since. I've really learned, particularly as we age, that when we travel and take ourselves out of our normal situation, whatever that might be, it changes our perspective and it simply makes us happier and healthier.
That's fantastic. Wow. So you really did get this travel bug early.
130 countries so far, and many of them many times.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I've got the bug. I'm an addict.
You are an addict. So tell me about what you call luxury budget travel. Is that just about cutting costs? Or, what is it? What is luxury budget travel?
Well, remember, I write and I speak for the Ageless Traveler, meaning we're a little older, right? So we need a good bed. We need the right food. We need the right pace. So luxury may be something a little bit different to us. We do need luxury, but we also need adventure. So to me, it's a combination of really good, healthy, safe travel that gives us a lot of juice, a lot of adventure with it. So that's luxury travel. There's ways of getting that for less than spending a ton of money on a very expensive tour when indeed it seems almost like you're still home. We don't.
Mm,
We want new experiences with our luxury on a budget.
I love it. And that's definitely right. I mean, I love to travel too. You know that. So,
Sure.
there has been research, and you've been publishing this in your newsletter, Adriane, about the benefits, the health benefits, the emotional benefits of travel. You alluded to that as an 11-year-old. Would you talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, so first of all, there is some background here. During COVID, I became a director of an organization started up, and that was called the Catalyst Institute for the Delay and Prevention of Age-Related Diseases, meaning chronic diseases. And I never was in that world, Wendy. I met geroscientists, people
Okay.
who were studying how we age. And from there, I began to read reports of the National Institute of Health in the UK, our own National Institute of Aging here in the US. And I was shocked to find that they were doing studies on the impact of actual travel, not armchair travel, but actual travel on longevity, how many years you actually live longer. And it's extremely positive. It's amazingly positive. And I'll give you the one or two reasons scientifically why.
Yeah, I want to know.
Well, one of them, we already know that loneliness kills. The Surgeon General has said it. You've talked about it many times on your show. So the companionship you get, the people you meet when you travel, the fact that your world broadens and you're almost forced to use some technology to stay together with people, that's a wonderful thing. But the other, and this is really interesting, there's something they call self-imposed helplessness.
Hmm.
Older people, like me, I'll be 77, are told, oh, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many times my young kids have said, what? It's irresponsible. You can't do that.
Mm.
When you travel, you got to do that. You have to get up in the morning. You have to pack, even if it's luxury, and they take your bags for you. You got to get the bags out the door.
That's right.
So many different things you have to do. And if you travel solo on your own, you're particularly autonomous. And so this baloney of self-imposed helplessness, if I could call it that, you don't buy into it anymore. Somebody tells you can't do it, you use my phrase. Well, everybody who says it can't be done, get out of the way of the people who are doing it. Because you're self-empowering.
Right.
That's what's going on. Sure.
And you have to be. I mean, especially if you're in a foreign country, you don't know the language, so you have to figure it out.
You do. You
Yep.
figure it out first. You plan. All of these things make you cognitively fit, self-confident, all the things that start to wane when you get a little bit older and people tell you can't do it.
Have you ever felt that you had taken a trip that you was like, oh, maybe this was a little more than I should have done?
Honestly, no. And I'll tell you how I do that. I was in Vietnam, and everybody on this particular trip were going out in the countryside on motorcycles, which I cannot do. I can't drive a motorcycle. So I told the guy, we had a guy, and it was a group trip, a plain, ordinary, inexpensive budget trip. Guess what? For a few extra dollars, I got myself a driver on a 2-seater. I was in the back. Was he handsome? And I went with everybody else. So sometimes you have to acknowledge yourself, as you talk about that too. Acknowledge your aging, acknowledge what you can and cannot do. And I'm going to do the Blanche, from Streetcar Named Desire. I get by with a little help from strangers.
Uh-huh.
And I make sure I can do it. And if I can't, I find a way.
I think that's so key.
That was a big problem. That when they told me I had to do motorcycling the next day, I was worried. And I made sure that I was able to do it.
And that's such a big key when we're aging, to not say I can't, but to find what are the things you have to do to make it possible to do the things you want to do.
Yeah, I call it inspiring compromise. Just compromise. That's
Yeah.
it.
Have you been on trips, Adriane, with other people that were reticent at first, and you've seen them start to bloom and develop their vitality and excitement?
Wow. Well, first of all, this is the truth about all solo travel. People bloom when they go out, particularly for the first time. It's delicious to see people, and sorry to say widowers going out for the first time. You can watch them bloom. But I was on a cruise down the Danube, And a woman came over to me and she was crying.
Mm.
And I obviously said, "Can I help you?" And she said, "I'm crying for joy. I am a widow. And this is the first time I've ever been out by myself. This is a true story." And it was on a cruise line called Theatrical Adventures at Sea with beautiful music and Gilbert and Sullivan, a group singing. And we were down the Danube. And she said, "I will never stop traveling." And that's where I got my motto line for the Ageless Traveler, "Never stop traveling." I got it from her.
Is that right?
Said, yeah.
That's a fabulous story. I had a similar experience that when we went to Quebec, and I had a woman that it was her first time traveling. Her husband had passed away 2 years ago, and she was very shy at first. And boy, did she blossom on that trip. It was, yeah, it was wonderful.
My mother, too. My mother went by herself to Alaska, and she called me, and I was talking to her, and all of a sudden I hear in the background, "Gertrude, we have to go on the glacier. Let's hurry." And she became a different person. It was wonderful.
That's great. So let's get into the nitty gritty. Okay. Budget travel. What do you have to do when you first start to plan for a trip that you don't want to like be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars?
Well, first of all, we do have an ebook. It's always free. Everything we do, by the way, is free. I think that's important. And it's called luxurytravelforless.info. Now, you've got 75 different websites there. So the first thing that you want to do, and I have 3 things. If you want to take a trip that you love, but you don't care where you go, this is important. Look at currencies. People forget to look at currency exchange. It is probably the easiest way to save money on any luxury travel. Go to a place where their currency is really great compared to the US. That's the first thing. The second thing you want to do is if you need somebody else to plan for you and you really want to go luxury for less, use a travel agent in another country, in the country where you're going to travel. So if you're going around England, use an English, so they're all online. Or if you like tours, use one of the English tour operators. This would be true of any country. I'm going to Africa. I'm doing that in Uganda. Very expensive to go to the gorillas and safari. Well, I'm using a Ugandan travel tour. It's about, you'll find it about 3/4 to half price. Same tour.
Amazing. That's
Same
amazing.
I have been on cruise lines, let's say down the Moselle, where next to me is the most expensive cruise line you could find, and we're going to the same place every single day. So that's an important one. And of course, the last thing is do know your budget. Know what you want to spend. And I have a particular thing I do. We can talk about specifics. I go very high end, overpriced if I want something for 1 or 2 days, and I skimp for other days. That's my way. So sometimes you need a really high-end experience. You don't want to miss it. So that's what I will do. Most people take the same amount of money for every single day. And in fact, if you look at tours, they'll tell you the daily cost. Not me. I want to go, wow, and I'm willing to compromise in other ways. So that's see your, I call it your MO, your modus operandi. And then I have so many hints and tips on wonderful ways to save money that are really spectacular.
Well, you mentioned finding a travel agent in the country you're going to. You said that to me also if you want to book a flight, right?
Yes. Let's talk about flights. So there are 3 or 4, well, there are 40 different things we have in luxury travel for less, but let me give you 3 top. Number 1, believe it or not, airlines make mistakes online, big mistakes. They sometimes put a fare up that's 10% of the actual fare. They made a mistake on a 0. Well, you can have alert services that will buzz you immediately on your email and say, take a look at this fare. It went down, or it's what's called an error fare, or it's a special fare. I just went from New York City back to LA for $171 on beautiful Alaska Air with a special seat because of that alert.
Wow.
$171. Okay, so that was last week, by the way. I'm not talking about years ago. So you want an alert service that's going to alert you to what's going on. Then you would like to use an airline, give you just one more, that gives you a free stopover. So I was going from Amsterdam, again, back to LA. But guess what? I went on Moroccan Airlines, and I went to Morocco. free. Not only the air was free, the hotel was free. In Qatar, in certain areas like in the Middle East that they're trying to promote tourism, if you want to go, you often can get a free hotel if you stay for 2 days or 3 days. Want to stay longer, you pay yourself. I mean, this is going on everywhere.
How do you find that?
Again, there are alert services for all of these, but the easiest way to find that is just go to the airline. So if you are going to, let's say I went to Israel, but first I went to Turkey and I had 3 days in Istanbul because I'm looking at the airlines. And again, there are alert services for all of that. So those are just two simple ways.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
What about so the airline is paying for your accommodations in that country too?
In certain countries, yes, 1 or 2, but many pay for simply a free stayover. Many pay for free stayover, like Morocco, Turkey, many others, because they want you to spend some money in their country.
So what about some of the local culture, like the food, the entertainment, things like that? How do you find what's best and fits into your budget? Or maybe that's when you go really high end.
Doing another ebook on this one right now. It's called Culture Vulturing all over the world.
Okay.
So I want to start with cruises for a minute with regard to this. One of the most wonderful ways to see the world and to culture vulture is to take a cruise. In and of itself, that saves money. Cruises are the most cost effective for luxury travel. And we have an affiliation with Cruises It that gives you a real discount on any cruise, including river cruises. Now, once you're on a cruise or on your own, if you're independent and you want to see something when you get off the ship in an excursion, or you want to see something because you happen to be there, there are very many ways to see things that are inexpensive. First of all, again, there are services that people have not heard of. My favorite is called Club Free Time.
Club Free Time.
It was $2 for a week. And it's in certain cities. I just went to 3 shows for $4.50 in New York City. And I'm talking about last week, right? So the first thing you want to know about those, and they're in many, many different countries and major cities, there's something called the average socialite. Again, in a few cities where you get invited to incredible events because you belong to that. So you want to, if you're a real culture vulture like I am, you want that. And I just wrote about Paris, which was the forefront of free museums. It's not just that the museums are free on certain days, but there are special events there. So you want to take a look. And if I was going to sell one thing to you guys, and I don't sell it, so I could say it, it's Time Out Magazine. Time Out Magazine is in almost every place that you would for major tourism. And it's a wonderful place to find. It's a regular magazine that you can subscribe to, but it's in different locations. So you want the London one, the New York one, the Chicago one. And I'll give you the last one. If you are in a small place, like you're in a small community or a place in England, because you're going there to hike or bike, it's not a big city, and you want some culture, you won't believe me, go to the high school.
Go to the high school?
Yeah, some of the best performances I have ever seen in high schools, community theater, and you'll find it all in the local papers.
Okay, I have to go now because I've got to go catch a flight.
Bye. Everybody does it.
I mean, this is incredible, and so much that we don't know about, and a lot of that is in your luxury travel ebook. Is that right?
Well, it's all there. Luxury Travel for Less ebook. But even our shows cover this constantly. Last week's podcast was about Cranbrook. It's a campus in Michigan, in Cranbrook, Michigan, where the greatest, and I'm talking about Saarinen and Frank Lloyd Wright, and the greatest mid-century modern architects built the entire campus. There are 3 major museums. There are walking tours. Some of these things cost $20. If you did it in Paris, you would have a guide and you would spend $195 just to see the beauty of that you could match in Cranbrook in Michigan. So we cover places you might not expect where you can have luxury travel for less.
Yeah, you have fascinating conversations on the Ageless Traveler, no question about it. So a lot of these tips that you're giving us seem like they would be if we were planning our trip all by ourselves. What if we felt more comfortable going with a tour guide?
Of
They do
course.
give you some free time on most of these tours.
Yes. So there are several kinds of tours that are specifically geared to the ageless traveler. What do I mean by the ageless traveler? Well, I call it anybody 60 plus,
Mhm.
but you can see I'm coming on 80. So we're talking about a big wide range. Plus, these are so active, these tours, that I could even say 45 plus would really enjoy some of the tours. So that's one thing you want to do. You may want to look at things that are specifically for the older traveler. But if you're looking for something that's adventure on a budget, then you're looking for something a little different. There are tours that take you glamping, meaning glamorous camping. I did a great one in Jordan. You'll find it very much less expensive. Even if you look at safari tours from U.S. tour operators, they will have lodges and they will have glamping. The glamping will be cheaper. So that's one of the things. As I mentioned, cruises. There's nothing like cruises. It's a wonderful trip. And of course, it can be organized for you on the excursions. And the other is bicycles and walking. I will tell you that another reason that travel brings longevity is you have to move.
That's right.
So if you're doing El Camino, if you're walking in England, in some of the beautiful English tours that you can even create your own map for, right? All of these types of organized tours where they take the backpack for you, right? You're not carrying anything, or you're doing a bicycle tour. They will always be cheaper and yet as luxurious as your regular tour.
Awesome. So I wanted to touch on voluntourism. That's something you're starting to write about and talk about more. Can you explain what that is?
Well, I'll tell you what it used to be, and I'll tell you what I would like it to be.
Okay.
It used to be that you paid just about the same amount of money as you would with any other trip. But when you got there, you would volunteer, whether you were helping children to read English, whether you were advising young women about how to start a business, whether you were planting trees, and so on. And then you would come home, and that was it. That's what it was. That was volunteering.
Okay.
Some places, some tour operators take you for a day to a school, and you dance with the children and you bring them toys, and they say, well, that's volunteering. It's not. It's just a nice day out.
All right.
What I'd like it to be, and what we're engineering at the Ageless Traveler, is that after you do your volunteer, you come home and you take your skills that you now either learned or refurbished, because we all have skills that get wasted after retirement, and you use them at home. So what we've done at the Ageless Traveler is we created something called the Ageless Ambassador Program. After you do your tour, and we have resources to do your tour, you come back and you join AmeriCorps Senior, which is the largest U.S. volunteer organization that we have in our country.
For seniors.
40,000 volunteers. You have to be 60 plus. And they will match you up at home with volunteering you can do for the rest of your life, having a really purposeful life that was ignited by the spirit of your volunteering. So it's a very exciting program, and you take it home. It's not a vacation only. It's really a life purpose generator.
So how do you find a good provider of a volunteer kind of a trip? I didn't realize it cost about the same either. I just assumed it would be less since you're volunteering.
Well, there are two types. One of them is just what you're talking about. In fact, sometimes they add money to it because you're also making a contribution, to the cause, to the mission. So some can be extremely expensive, and you have to be careful. I do write about that a lot. You have to be careful that they're just not making money on the name volunteering or volunteering. But we do have some wonderful resources. My favorite is called Hero Holidays. And I just did a podcast with Lorraine Keenan. Now that is for helping children, also to read, also to help teenagers become better at job searches, and that's all in Africa. So you will find that if you are sure that the organization is a 501c3 registered here in the US, or if they're in other countries, an NGO, a non-governmental organization. That's what that stands for, NGOs. You'll discover that they have legitimate need for you. You're doing more volunteering than you are touring. Remember that. But it is much, much less expensive.
And I guess you could add on a couple of days here and there too.
Year on year. Look, I've never, and I'm sure this is true of you too, and many people listening. When you were working, have you ever been to a conference where you didn't sneak away?
Oh, right.
Run? I know. You snuck away and you did a little bit of your own. Yeah,
Right.
So that's the same with some volunteering or volunteering. You can sneak away and do your own thing for a few days.
All right. You got to do it. So, I know that particularly with solo travelers, Adriane, there's this nervousness, like first of all, navigating the airport by yourself. Second of all, I'm not going to know anybody on the trip. And maybe you're going with a friend, but what are some tips you have for that?
Yeah, well, first of all, there is something to get over. And I will sadly say that some people can't. They just cannot get over going out by themselves. But the first tip is do it locally. I know it sounds funny, but I've been married for 55 years. And I travel a lot with my husband, but I also am a solo traveler. So I don't know if people know it. 25, depends on who you ask, 25 to 63% of women who travel by themselves, but the minimum is 25%, are married. So the first thing you should know is just because you're going out there alone doesn't mean that you're a leftover. You may very well be married to the nicest guy or the nicest woman in the world. They don't just like to travel. That's it. So that's the first thing. You shouldn't be stigmatized. The way you get into the habit, it's a habit, is go locally. So we have something called not date night in my home. My husband and I, we call it not date night.
Okay.
I go someplace by myself and he goes to Panda Express, but that's another show. So anyway, what happens at Panda Express stays at Panda Express. But I actually go to nice places. So not that Panda Express is not a nice place. It's a great place. But he goes every week. So anyway, I go to jazz clubs, a little different. So you get yourself acclimated locally to go on your own. That's an important thing. The second thing is there are wonderful places like Journey Woman, which is an organization that represents many companies. They're not a travel agency by themselves. For women over the age of 60 who want to travel by themselves. And those are organized tours specifically for solos. So that's another way you can go. And they even have a directory of all over the world. And it's a wonderful place called Journey Woman. And I will be doing, an event with them. That's also very exciting on the 22nd, just in a couple of days. That's online. So take a look at that.
Say more about that. The Journey Woman. Say more about that.
Well, Journey Woman is a place that is like the Ageless Traveler in the sense that it's there to empower people to travel. But in that particular case, it's only women. And in that particular case, it's only solo travel. And so Journey Woman is wonderful. We actually won the 2024 Wisdom Award on how to travel solo. So those are organized ways. And then the last thing I will mention is there are many people like me that really do want to travel solo. I'm an only child. I traveled solo many times in my life. I like it. But I'm not a great planner. I generally ask my husband to do some of this planning, full disclosure. So I look at certain things that help me plan.
Okay.
Again, I mentioned cruises because it helps you actually plan your cruise and where you want to go and when you want to go. I look at something that I use all the time, which is called Tripped. And it's also on our website. And that is a way of how to pack right when you're by yourself, because sometimes it's quite different. There's nobody else there to help you, or support you. So I look at things like that. And when I want to do it yourself type of thing, I do, again, on our website, I'll get your guide. I will get a local guide. So I may get there myself. I may have my hotel room booked, my accommodation, but I will have a guide. And it's a one-on-one guide.
Yeah.
So these are many ways that you can travel by yourself.
I love the suggestion to first try it locally. I mean, just even going to restaurants by yourself, some people find that very difficult, but nobody is really looking at you. We think people are looking at us more than they really are.
We are the star of our own show. But I'm right in the midst of writing about not date night and how to do this in a restaurant. So I got to take two things because they're funny, but I've been doing this all my life. Take a book with you.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't even have to read it. Just take a book with you. And what it says is, don't bother me. I'm not here to get picked up. Unless you are. Unless you are. So that's an important one. The other one is, don't let them sit you near the toilet.
Oh.
Yes, because I go so much. I know that there's a fair preponderance of taking an individual person and putting them in a crappy seat. So if you're at a beautiful restaurant and you want to see the chef because it's one of those places with an open kitchen, you go right in and say, that's where I usually sit. Can I sit there? Even if you've never been there before. So you are going to pick your own seat and don't feel wrong to reject where they sat you and say, it's too cold, it's too hot, I like to be in the middle, whatever.
Yeah, I think that's important. And there's another thing, though, about traveling by yourself. You don't want to look like you're lost. You don't want to look like you're a victim. I think there's a lot of awareness, situational awareness, they call it, right? That
Correct.
You want when you're out there walking by yourself or even in the airport or the hotel by yourself.
Yeah. Well, I'm from Brooklyn. So we're kind of born aware and we walk in a certain way. So, see if you can practice in your mind thinking, don't even think about it.
That's right.
So if you see somebody who, you think is a little creepy, you think in your own mind, don't even think about it. Even if you don't say it, they get it. So you have to have that attitude.
You do. You have to. And I've also learned that with a hotel, like hotels mostly know they give you the card key and the number of your room is written on it. But sometimes they'll say, oh, you're in room 403. They're not supposed to do that.
That's correct.
So ask for another room then.
That's right. So in other words, your own awareness. We just did a couple of only 2 or 3 shows ago with Peter Anderson. Peter Anderson is an advisor to hotels. And we did a whole thing on safety. And I did not know a couple of things. Security and safety are 2 different things at hotels. So safety to them means your things should not be stolen. And we talked about, are the safes any good? They really aren't. He disclosed, forget it. So it's for show, makes you feel better. So safety rules and regulations, they have quite a bit of those. Personal security, they call security. And you can ask, what are your security provisions? If you ask about safety, they're going to tell you that, if things steal, we've got an insurance policy. That's not what you're talking about.
No.
It's kind of interesting. So Peter Anderson definitely is one of the podcasts to listen to. Yeah. It's not about where to go in Paris, but it was important.
It is important, especially if you're traveling by yourself or if you're older and, your mobility is slowed down, all of that. It's important. All right. You ready for some quick questions?
Quick fire. Go ahead.
Okay, let's go. Favorite budget destination?
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind that my favorite destination for budgeting is Southeast Asia.
Oh.
Just if you go to Vietnam, if you go to Cambodia, if you go to Thailand, again, the currency is amazing. The prices are much lower. People earn less, which is an issue. As you know, I work with the United Nations a lot, and I'm on a board there for poverty and other kinds of equality. But from a tourism point of view, you can take advantage of the fact that some wonderful things are simply cheaper in Southeast Asia.
Okay.
And of course, it's a wonderful experience. Everything is terrific to see.
Right. The food has to be amazing.
It is.
Yeah. What's one of your most surprising travel moments?
A terrible mistake.
Uh-oh.
I try to hide this, but I have totally no direction. I never know where I am. I'm left right dyslexic. I'm awful. So I do rely on my husband.
Okay.
He never makes a mistake. He's like a human GPS. But I wanted to go to Andorra. For those of you who don't know Andorra, it's one of the smallest countries in the world. It's a total country of their own. They're in the Pyrenees, and they're near France, and they're near Spain. What I didn't know is that and he didn't know, is that there's 3 Andorras
Oh.
in Spain, which are not the country of Andorra. So we got out a bus from to go to Andorra. It said Andorra, and it was from Barcelona, and we ended up in Andorra, Spain, which is nowhere, not even a cow.
Not even a cow.
Not even a cow. And we're beginning to think we're not in the Pyrenees, So we got out, and I have to tell you that there was one gas station, and this guy took us under his wing. And there's no hotels, there's no place to stay, there's nothing. And we had prepaid all our Andorra and everything. And he got us a driver, which was his brother-in-law. And they drove us in the car it was $400, by the way, not luxury travel for less, through the Pyrenees. And we had a magnificent experience, and we got to Andorra on time. And when we got to the desk at our hotel, we told them our story, and they said, "Oh, everybody does that."
Oh, gosh.
Make sure you know where you're going.
Yeah, that's your lesson learned from that, huh? Oh, my gosh. What's one item you never leave home without, Adriane?
Oh, my moisturizer.
Your moisturizer.
Look, when my mother was 90 years old, I asked her for some words of wisdom. And she thought about it. And she said, "Don't forget your moisturizer." That means so many things. But to me, it really means take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I never leave without my pills, which are really, our age, extremely important. Mm-hmm. Books to read, because I'm one of those people who don't love a Kindle. So I actually read real books. And I never leave without my moisturizer, or let's use that as something that makes me feel good in terms of my personal appearance, whatever that may be to you. To me, it's moisturizer.
Yeah, taking care of yourself. And books. You travel with books.
I do.
I love paperback books too, or I try not to take hardbacks.
I give them away all over the world. I will never forget giving a book to a young man who was behind the counter at a not the greatest hotel in Saigon, and gave one in Ho Chi Minh City and many places in the world. And it's all in English. And everybody loves it because they're trying to study English. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to leave it for young people. In a cruise, and I have a nice, I think it's useful, how to make the most of a short cruise. And one of the places I go on a cruise always is the library. Mm-hmm. I pick up books. So cruising is great because the books are there. People rarely go to a library, but every cruise ship has a library. But if I brought my own book, when I finish my book, I leave it in the library at a cruise, because there's always take one and leave one section.
Brilliant.
So that's always very good. So I actually take books with me and give them away as I go along.
I love that. So where's your next adventure? Where are you going?
3 months in Africa.
3 months.
Yes, we're going to Uganda, we're going to Namibia, we're going to South Africa, and we're going to Botswana. And we also are going to a conference of the International Federation on Aging. I'm one of the representatives to the UN. So it's our conference in Cape Town. But in September 14th, we have our very first trip that we're offering through Colette Tours, which is a U.S. company, 16 game drives in Kenya and Tanzania. So those of you who have been dying to go on safari and are concerned how to do it very safely, luxury travel for less, the best of the best, please look at the Ageless Traveler and take a look at our safari. But I've been to Africa before, but I'm light. I'd say I'm light on Africa. Haven't been there enough.
3 months. Are you still going to be doing your show from there?
Oh yeah. This is 10 years we've been going away for 3 months every summer. This is not new for us.
Okay.
2 years ago, we actually went around the world. Last year we went to Iceland and Greenland and Cannes. So we did a lot that was European for a 3-month period. So yeah, we travel a lot.
All right. So tell people where they can find you and what they can find there.
It's really easy. You go, the hub here is agelesstraveler.com. If you know that, you more or less know everything. Because there you can get our free newsletter, which is called Travel Tuesday, and it has all the information every single week. You can get our podcast. You can even learn how to listen to a podcast if you don't use podcasts. You can get all of our free ebooks like Luxury Travel for Less, but also if you're a caregiver, you're having trouble traveling with your care recipient, you have ebooks on that. And of course, one of the things that I think is the most important thing is you can join our Facebook salon and talk with each other. I think that's really key and critical. And you can ask me questions and I answer them. So those are some of the things. And the question somebody asked me was how to write a travel memoir. And today I actually published, coming out tomorrow on the podcast, how to write a travel memoir. So we really listen to you. And we really have things that you generate. So I call the Ageless Traveler your show, not my show.
Well, you have been amazingly generous with what you've shared with us. And like you said, there's so many ebooks with information on the Ageless Traveler. Adriane, thank you so much. And I just want to say, if today's conversation sparked something in you, certainly listen to the podcast, share it with friends, go ahead and like and 5-star review it. And maybe you kind of sparked a dream for your next chapter. So if you have these kinds of dreams and you're kind of unsure on where to get started, if it's travel, check out Ageless Traveler. If it's just life and how to continue to live your life in the next chapter, my next chapter blueprint program is designed for people in their 60s and beyond who want more meaning, connection, and direction in this stage of your life. So if that's you, just drop me an email at wendy@heyboomer.biz and we'll set up a time to chat and just, no strings attached, just a little chat and see where you're at. Let's see. Next Monday is Memorial Day, right? So we won't be doing a show for that. But the week after that, I'll be back with a new episode on Monday, June 9th with Rabbi Richard Address. Rabbi Address hosts a weekly podcast called Seekers of Meaning. And on that show, they discuss issues related to aging, spirituality, and its impact of aging on families and congregations and on us. So we're going to discuss our relationship with accepting our aging selves. It should be interesting. And one final thing, if you're enjoying Boomer Banter, I think you will also enjoy the Women Over 70 show with Catherine Marino and Gail Zaletsky. They share stories from diverse women ages 70 to 110, where they shatter myths and change the conversation about women aging. So look for it wherever you get your podcast or check out their website, womenover70.com. Adriane, you've been amazing and wonderful, as I knew you would be. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. And never stop traveling.
Never stop traveling. And thank you for sharing your time with both of us. And I will see you in 2 weeks. Happy Memorial Day.
Thank you.
Bye.